Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome in from around the world today for another very exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. A lot of familiar faces in the crowd, but a lot of newbies too. So if you are new to us, we're all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world, and you're catching us in the midst of a really epic series. So as you may know, if you've joined us before, conservation is one of the biggest things that we do. We partner with amazing members of the IUCN. We featured a lot of incredible Reverse the Red stories in the past, but right now you are smack dab in the middle of one of our most epic series all year long, and that is our National Wildlife Week celebration in conjunction with the amazing folks at the Canadian Wildlife Federation. So last year we did this. It was such a hit. We just had to bring it back. And over the last 3 days, we featured stories on hummingbirds, pronghorn antelope, which are super, super cool, and salmon running upriver. So I encourage you, head to our YouTube channel, check out all those broadcasts, lots to explore and discover there. Now, before I bring in our speaker du jour and our topic that garnered the biggest audience of the entire series, I do want to note we do have a Kahoot today. So if you want to play along with a little 4-question quiz, you can pull up that game pin and join us for a little bit of fun at the midway point. But I'm so excited, and you guys are too, because you all signed up for Michelle. Michelle's going to join us to talk to us today about monarch butterflies. Now, I grew up in Toronto. Monarchs were a huge part of the city there. I have seen hundreds of monarchs fly overhead, getting ready to go across Lake Ontario on their epic migration south. I hope you've all seen monarchs too, but if not, you're in for a real treat as we learn about probably the most well-known insect on planet Earth. So, without further ado, I'm going to zip my lip. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited today, everybody. So why don't I just pull up my slide? Oh my gosh, my slides are right there. Thank you very much. Okay, we're getting going here. So welcome to a talk about monarch butterflies, the amazing migration of the monarch butterfly. I'm Michelle McPherson. I work for the Canadian Wildlife Federation, and today I am talking to you from the beautiful city of Halifax on Canada's east coast. So I'm in the province of Nova Scotia. You can see that down in red in case you're not familiar with my part of the world. Apparently Halifax is one of Canada's best kept secrets. So if you're looking for a great tourist destination, I'm just going to put in that little plug. Now, I'm one of those strange people who likes bugs. Is there anybody else out there who likes bugs?
Me. I love bugs. And the clouds,
Yeah?
by the way, we got a lot of hands up in the clouds.
Oh my gosh. Oh, okay. I am thrilled. Okay. I'm really happy to have such a good audience then. So just to tell you a little bit about some of the things I've had a chance to do, I've chased butterflies in Jasper National Park, and I got paid for it. I studied dragonflies in Newfoundland for my master's degree, and I got paid for it. And here in Nova Scotia, I'm also a beekeeper. Now, believe it or not, I didn't always used to like bugs. In fact, I found them as scary and gross as many other people do. And so I actually planned to be an architect or a marine biologist. But then in my 3rd year of university in Edmonton at the University of Alberta, the only science option that would fit in my timetable was a course on entomology. Entomology is the study of insects. And I was completely horrified. There was no way I was going to take a course about bugs. And so I talked to 3 different academic advisors. Nobody could help me find another course that would fit in my timetable. So I had no choice. I had to take entomology. And I went to that class expecting to hate it. And then something very different happened. I quickly discovered that insects are not the little robotic, odd little beings that just skitter around and scare us. They actually have really complex and interesting little lives of their own. They're not just full of green goo. You know, insects have little hearts and they have little brains and they breathe air just like we do. Well, they don't breathe air in the exact same way that we do, but I think you get the point. Anyway, I guess you could say that life surprised me and took me in a new direction. I didn't choose the bug life, but the bug life chose me. And so now I get to work I get to work on behalf of a lot of insects. I get to work for pollinators. I work at the Canadian Wildlife Federation where I help to create native wildflower meadows, like the one in this background. So meadows that are really rich in a lot of different types of flowers that feed our bees, feed our other pollinators like the flies, the butterflies, the beetles, and hummingbirds. And then, of course, all of those insects end up feeding birds and small mammals as well. So it's really rewarding. I feel like even though I work at a computer all day, I'm still kind of connected to the ground. And I feel like my career couldn't have turned out any better than it did. So that's a little plug for those of you who might be interested in following biology. And today, what I want to talk to you about is a really special insect, an insect that does something that no other insect in the world can do. And so I guess I just want to start out by asking, who has seen a monarch butterfly?
Ooh, okay. Well, as I said at the beginning, I have seen tons of monarch butterflies, one of my very favorite insects in the world. But Mrs. Fisher's class, have you guys seen monarchs before?
Oh, duh! Yeah!
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, that's great.
I heard a duh in there. Yeah.
Okay,
well,
where is Mrs. Fisher's class from? Are you guys, whereabouts in the world are you?
We're in Carsonville, Michigan. We've got some Georgetown, Ontario.
Oh,
classes.
yeah. Okay, yeah. No, you've definitely seen some monarch butterflies down there. I'm happy to hear that. Okay, and I have a question also for maybe some of our grade 1 students, so our youngest audience. Who can tell me what colors monarch butterflies are?
Ooh, let's see. We got a few older classes too. Miss Reynolds' class, if you guys want to chime in the chat as well, we got some grade 3s in Jamestown and New York. You can always share with me in the chat, both YouTube and live. So yes, orange. I think they're the most commonly known insect in the world. So a lot of us seem to know that, which is great.
Okay, good. Orange, black, and white. Really striking butterflies, as many of you know. It's also one of the largest butterflies in Canada. They have a wingspan that is, see here, up to 10 centimeters. So that's a pretty big butterfly. And they're found across much of southern Canada. And of course, their claim to fame is that they migrate for the winter. And we'll talk a little bit about where some of those populations go. Now, who can tell me what monarch butterflies eat?
Ooh, I'm going to head to some live classes again. So Miss Reynolds, if you guys ever want to flick on your mic, you can. But Mr. Hancock's class, we'll see both. Miss Reynolds, you're right there at the camera. So what do monarchs eat? Do we know?
Milkweed!
I heard it. Milkweed.
Okay. So you guys are so smart, you're actually ahead of me. You're right. The monarch caterpillars eat milkweed, but what do monarch butterflies eat?
Ooh, Mr. Hancock's class, what do you guys think?
What do we think? Anybody? No, we're stumpy. Plants, maybe?
Hey, keep it coming. You're close.
Flowers.
Yes, I heard the N word. Perfect. Excellent.
There you go. That's it.
Yes. Okay. So monarch butterflies drink nectar from flowers. And I wanted to show you this picture because it shows you how amazing butterfly tongues are. I don't know if you've ever really thought about this, but their tongues are kind of like a long drinking straw. And so you can see in this photograph on the left with the monarch butterfly, flying towards those pink flowers. And you see that sort of like funny rolled up thing that it has in the front of its face. Well, basically, it's so excited about getting those pink flowers to taste the nectar, it's actually starting to unroll its big, long tongue. And so then they suck up nectar from flowers just like a straw. And monarch butterflies can feed on lots of different types of wildflowers. So whatever you plant that might be native to your area or just tasty for other insects is probably going to be something that a monarch butterfly can feed on. But what about the baby monarch butterflies? They're a little bit different, aren't they? Who can tell me a little bit about them?
They are. So, I mean, you guys jumped the gun. You were so on the ball with this, but
I know you said something that was actually going to come up in another slide. But what about baby monarchs?
Yeah. So our caterpillars for them, and again, coming in online is milkweed. They are.
Oh my gosh, you guys know a lot. Okay, so yes, baby monarch butterflies are caterpillars, and I know that some of you know this because you're older students, but I just want to go through this again. It's always helpful. Monarch butterflies do a complete metamorphosis. So they do a complete transformation. They start off as a little egg that, you're right, was laid on a milkweed plant. And then that egg hatches. It turns into a very striking caterpillar, black and yellow stripes. Look at that. And they're big. When they're final size, they're a good big long caterpillar. When it's time for them to transform, they form something called a chrysalis. It's really beautiful. It's almost like a gem, pale green with like gold dots on it. And then when that chrysalis hatches, or when it hatches, they basically hatch into an adult butterfly. And so I'll say a few more things. You jumped the gun. You knew about this already. Monarch caterpillars can only eat milkweed. They can't eat anything else in the entire world. And so we've got a couple of nice photographs there of some caterpillars munching away. Actually, fun fact, I just thought of this. One monarch butterfly caterpillar needs one entire milkweed plant to eat. That's how much they eat. So one caterpillar needs an entire milkweed plant. Isn't that crazy? And I just want to show you some pictures of it's just so interesting, you know, to see that caterpillar know that it's, you know, it's time to transform, and they just kind of hang from a branch or somewhere safe, and you can see that they shed their skin, and then that chrysalis forms, and when the caterpillar, or when the butterfly is about to emerge, the chrysalis turns, you know, a clear color, so you can see that in the photograph on the right there. And then they emerge into a beautiful butterfly, and the emergence is actually quite quick. It just kind of goes, just kind of hatches. Hopefully some of you have seen that happen. And this happens about a month after the egg was laid. So it's not a very long period of time, is it? When the butterflies first emerge, you can see the butterfly looks kind of soft and its wings are a little bit crinkly. They're going to have to hang there maybe for, I don't know how long it takes. Could be an hour, could be longer hours, might even be a day. And they basically just let all their blood kind of get going through their veins, and their wings stiffen up a little bit. And they have to go through that period before they can fly anywhere. So they are pretty vulnerable when they're just hanging there. And it's really important just to leave them alone. So once they fly off, they feed on nectar from wildflowers and some of our flowering crops. This is important. Monarch butterflies do act as pollinators for our food crops. And now I think what I'd like to do is just broaden out a little bit and share with you the bigger story about monarch butterflies. And so we're going to look at North America now. So here we're looking at a map that shows just the southern part of Canada and the United States and Mexico. And so you can see the two different populations marked here on that map. And so there's sort of one yellow blob on the left part of your screen on the western part of the Rocky Mountains. And so that's the western population of monarch butterflies. And then east of the Rocky Mountains, so from like southern Alberta through southern Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, Wisconsin, Michigan, where some of you are listening from today as well. That's the eastern population of monarch butterflies. And that population is actually quite a lot larger than the western one. So now that you can see where they are, so basically, you know, they're just, they live there, they live through this entire range during the summers. So the butterflies are laying their eggs on milkweed, the caterpillars are munching away, they're turning into butterflies. So summers are great, but then, you know, in the fall it starts to get a lot colder again. And, you know, the butterflies don't really want to stick up here in Canada, you know, just before the snow flies. So who can tell me where monarch butterflies spend their winters? There are two answers here. There are actually two answers.
There are. So Mrs. Fisher's class, we haven't been to you guys in a while. Do you know where the monarchs go in the winter?
Where do they go? Anybody know? Mexico. Mexico.
That's one of them. Yeah, that's one of them. Does anybody know the second answer?
All right, Miss Reynolds, I'm going to come to you first. If you want to unmute, do you know where the other places monarchs go? What do we think?
What do you think? Florida.
Florida. Okay, another hot
Well,
spot.
actually, that could be true. Okay, so there are three answers. That wasn't the one I was looking for, but that was pretty smart. Okay, what about the
Number
third
three,
answer?
for all the marbles, Mr. Hancock, where's the other place?
We were thinking Florida as well, unfortunately, but I'm assuming further south.
Okay. One other warm summer.
One more chance. One more chance. It's another.
Okay. YouTube
it's
says
another
California too, so we got it. California, Florida, Mexico.
Oh, right. Okay, that's excellent. Yes. So, yeah. We, you know, this western population of monarchs is the one that fewer people know about. So I'm actually going to start with them. As I said, it's a much smaller population. It's probably, of the two populations, it's the one that is the most threatened, actually. And Now, this map here just shows the United States. I mean, if it showed more of Canada, you could see that these butterflies spend their summers in southern British Columbia as well. But essentially, during the wintertime, they will travel hundreds of kilometers and they spend their winters on the California coast. Now, one thing that's kind of unique about this population, and one thing that actually is contributing to the fact that this population is getting smaller, is that people down in California tend to plant a non-native type of milkweed called tropical milkweed. And tropical milkweed is actually not very good for monarch butterflies. So if you happen to know people who live down there, or if you live in California, it's definitely best to be planting the native milkweeds for those butterflies to eat during the winter. It just keeps them a lot healthier. So essentially, these butterflies go to the California coast to spend their winters, and then back in the spring and the summer, they just kind of migrate back up north, back through their other range. So that's what these ones do. And the eastern monarchs, as you said, are the ones that migrate to Mexico, and are the ones that, in some cases, parts of the population actually do go down to Florida as well. So you were right about that. Now, I guess basically what I want you to do on this map is just to follow the large orange lines on the right side. So we're looking at the eastern population, and we're going to start with the supergeneration. So the supergeneration are the butterflies in Canada in the fall that fly all the way down to Mexico. And so they fly down along, they sort of funnel along the Great Lakes, and then they fly down through the Midwestern part of the United States. And some of them are flying down, you know, the eastern side of the Appalachian Mountains too, and they might end up in Florida. But they fly down through these, what we call these central flyways. So they're just kind of like recognized routes that the monarch butterflies, that they take. And while they're flying down there all the way to Mexico, they're feeding on nectar of wildflowers like asters and things like that are blooming in the late fall. And they're doing that just to kind of, you know, keep their reserves going so they can fly that long distance. Once they get down to Mexico, they find a really, really special patch of forest. And it's, you know, these areas aren't very big. Like, it's kind of amazing that they can go all the way down to Mexico and find this place. But essentially, it's a really special high elevation cloud forest. And so it's nice and cool and dry over the winters. They love to roost together and cluster together in these really tall fir trees. The fir trees are called oyamel fir trees. Another name for them is the sacred fir tree. That's what the Mexicans call it. And so you can see in that photograph that the butterflies then, like, they just kind of cluster en masse in these trees. And sometimes when they get warm days, especially closer to spring, they might fly down to the forest floor and do a little bit of feeding or drink a little water or something like that. And then, you know, back at night, they kind of roost high up in these trees again. And they're kind of protected that way too, right? Like, they're protected by the fact that they're all together. Now, this is where the migration story is actually going to get even more amazing. So even more amazing than butterflies flying 5,000 kilometers from, you know, from eastern Canada down to Mexico. Are you guys ready? Do you know what I'm going to talk about here?
So ready. I you know what? Even if they do know, let's just like keep it secret for those who don't know and blow our minds. Best story ever.
Okay, well, we're going to get into this. We're going to get into why monarch butterflies are the most special insect in the world. So monarch butterflies do a two-way migration. It's actually the only insect that migrates both ways, where the individual butterfly will migrate both ways. Now, it's not even the longest insect migration in the world. Like, there are some big dragonflies in the world that go further than monarch butterflies, but the monarchs are the only ones that can go in two directions, and they do this over multiple generations, which is also very cool. So let me show you a little bit about how that works. I know that this is a very complicated looking map, so I'm just going to ask you to focus on the yellow arrows. So go down here to that nice red dot in Mexico where it says winter. So those are the oyamel fir forests where they spend the winter. And we're going to follow the yellow arrows from that red dot, and we're going to follow them all up the eastern side of North America. We're going to go up through the Midwest, and we're going to go up into southern Ontario and Quebec and eastern Canada. And so this starts, as I said, this starts in winter. So the monarch butterflies have been in the forest, it's winter, now it becomes spring, and those same butterflies kind of go, okay, it's time to go back north. And so those same butterflies go back north, they go into like the southern states, and they start feeding on milkweed and other flowers. They start laying their eggs on milkweed. And so then the first generation of monarch butterflies emerges in the southern states, and that first generation is the one that flies up to southern Ontario or Michigan. You know, they fly up to southern Ontario, they're there by early May. And then the monarch butterflies have several more generations up in Canada for the summer. And so those other generations will be generations 2, 3, and 4. So these are through, you know, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, southern Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes, and so they're feeding and they're growing and they're raising, you know, they're raising new butterflies, and then it's these generation 4 individuals, the ones at the end of the summer, the super generation, that end up migrating back down to Mexico again. So does that make sense? I mean, it's pretty amazing. I just want to show you that, you know, the migration happens with like different generations of butterflies, and then that last generation up in Ontario and Quebec and Eastern Canada ends up flying back down to Mexico again. Pretty great, hey?
Very nice indeed.
I'm not hearing anything.
You know, you're good. Yeah, I'm just to be like all good.
Okay. So I do want to talk a little bit about the fact that that monarch butterflies populations have become a lot smaller, especially the one. Well, the one in the west has probably declined the most. The eastern population is much smaller. They're actually now considered to be endangered in Canada, so we are kind of worried about that. But I do also want to just let you know how many people are working to help monarch butterflies. And I can talk a little bit more about what we're doing at Canadian Wildlife Federation. Basically, throughout the monarch butterflies migratory range in Canada, which is basically Eastern Canada, Quebec, and Southern Ontario, we are working with organizations and with cities, and we're planting these native meadows, and these native meadows actually have a lot of milkweed in them as well. So you can see that in this big picture on the right, sometimes we're putting these meadows under hydro corridors, so basically under all the, you know, electricity lines and routes. Those are a great place to put meadows, and so we're working on doing that. Sometimes we also put wildflowers and meadow habitats along roadsides, and so you can see that picture on the left. And this is actually something I just want to shout out for all of you who are living in the United States. This work is happening all through the United States. It's just amazing. The states like Texas, I'm just thinking Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, like your states have done so much work to put flowers alongside your highways. And we're hoping that that will really help. That will basically, you know, provide monarch butterflies with food for their migration, and also with milkweed that they can use for breeding, for laying their eggs, and for their caterpillars to eat. So, you know, and monarch butterflies are also protected in the forests of Mexico as well. So a lot of people in all 3 countries are working together. Saving monarchs is a really great example of international cooperation, you know, among all 3 countries in North America. So all 3 countries are playing their part. And now I'm just curious to know, like, just based on what I've talked about, you know, is there anything that you can think of that you would love to do to help monarch butterflies?
Ooh, so again, we'll put this to our audience for one last question. We're getting close to the end of where we want to start.
I know, I'm almost at the end.
Good, perfect. So yeah, we've got plant milkweed. We've got plant milkweed a couple times written in, so that's fantastic. Those are great options.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this question. This exact question might come up in our Kahoot, so keep in mind on some options that are shared here. Protect habitat, so save the habitat that we have already. Don't litter. Don't put garbage in the way of any insects that are going. That's true for all animals.
That's lovely.
Fantastic option. Miss Fisher, make a pollinator garden at school. Awesome, guys.
Yes. Okay. That's fabulous. I'm really, really happy to hear that. I think, you know, I think that your generation has a lot of really positive ideas, And I think that you have the potential to really help a lot. I also just want to let you know about a program that Canadian Wildlife Federation runs. If you're living in Ontario and Quebec, I'm sorry, we're only running it I'm sorry, we're only running it up here in Canada. Basically, what we're trying to do is we're trying to track the monarch butterflies as they migrate down south to Mexico. So I think that Jessie is going to pop that link up that you can, so basically there's a little registration page. You can sign up and then we can send you some information and tell you how to get involved. It's really fun, really easy. Yeah.
I've shared it in StreamYard, I've shared it in YouTube, and if you registered for today, you're going to get that in an email when you're done the broadcast as well. So lots
Great.
of
You know what? Like if you're an older student, if you're in junior high, you could probably go out and do this yourself. If you're a younger student, you should ask your parents or grandparents or your other older relatives if they would go out and look for butterflies with you. It's really a great deal of fun, and it helps science. So you're making a contribution when you do stuff like this too. Now, I have a few last things about monarchs I just thought would be fun to tell you. And this all relates to their migration. So monarch butterflies can actually tell the time of day. And it's because they have specialized cells in their antennae that basically, kind of help them monitor like the amount of light that they're seeing and so forth. So they actually tell time with their antennae. And of course, they can track the position of the sun, and that helps to keep them, going in a southerly or a northerly direction. Monarch butterflies can flap their wings twice per second, 120 times a minute, twice per second. I think that's faster than you guys can flap your arms. They can fly between 6 and 20 kilometers an hour, which may be faster than you can ride your bikes. So I know there are a lot of strong legs out there in the audience, but monarch butterflies can outrun you. That's pretty cool, hey? Now, who is going to be keeping an eye out this summer and spring for monarch butterflies?
Me. Oh man, I can't wait.
You know what? Some of you, have any of you actually down in the States, have any of you seen any monarch butterflies yet? It's like mid-April. You've probably seen some.
Yeah, Miss Reynolds' class, Mrs. Fisher's class, you can let us know when we go to the Q&A if you've seen any monarchs, but that's awesome. I hope you have. I have not seen any in Newfoundland. It's very frozen.
No, they're definitely not in Newfoundland yet. You won't see them until June or July, if they get there at all. But yeah, no, some of you have already seen them this year, and I really hope that the rest of you will keep an eye out for them. And anyway, thanks so much, everybody, for listening. Does anybody have anything they want to tell me or any questions they'd like to ask?
We're going to have a whole bevy of questions in just a minute, Michelle. If you want to come out of screen share so you can see us again, have a bit of a conversation, that would be awesome. But what we're going to begin with is our 4-question Kahoot to test some understanding and have a little bit of fun. So, Michelle, it's your first Kahoot with us. So,
Am I nervous? Can I be nervous?
You can participate if you want, but you can help us out with some of the answers because I think you might know. So, for those who are new to this, the faster you answer, the more points you get, and what you win, as you will know if you've joined me before, is Michelle and I's everlasting respect. So no pressure at all. 4 questions. We're going to have some fun together. And then Mr. Hancock, you guys are going to be our first class in our Q&A. YouTubers, start sharing your questions as well. Mrs. Fisher, Miss Reynolds' class, we're coming to you as well. But let's dive in, get underway. And if you don't want to play along, you can also just yell out the answers in your class. That's totally fine. But let's get started. Here we go. Drum roll, please. One more second. Okay. Monarch caterpillar's favorite food is, you guys nailed this. Like you nailed it before Michelle even wanted to tell you. Is it fruit, nectar, milkweed leaves, or other caterpillars? Savage, cannibalistic caterpillars. Perhaps not, but our answer is here, of course. Let's see what you guys get in. And so many of you are already set to plant this thing, so I'm sure you know, which is great. Wow, 54 of you. This is a big Kahoot. Yeah. Oh, a lot of you thought nectar. So nectar is the adults. Caterpillars was the key there. They like that nice milkweed leaf. All right. Genius rhinos in our lead, Michelle. Let's go to question 2.
All right. Very good.
Monarchs are toxic and advertise with bright colors to avoid being eaten. Bad writing on my part. So they're bright orange. Why are they bright orange? That's a pretty flashy color. Now, if you were to eat a monarch, and I don't advise eating a monarch, no. Maybe it's because they're toxic. Maybe that's our answer. The answer is, of course, true. Yes, most of you got this right. So a lot of creatures that are colorful, and especially stripy things in nature, it means that you don't want to eat them. They're poisonous. So that changes our leaderboard entirely. Helpful Swan takes our lead. 2 more questions. Monarchs gather in forests with millions of butterflies on single trees. So like we talked about this picture is like a whole bunch on one branch. Now, Michelle and I were talking about this the other day. I've been to the forest of the monarchs in Mexico. Michelle's got to go. It's one of the most magical places in the world. Yeah. Let's see, 50 answers. And this is our biggest Kahoot in the whole series so far. This is great. Yes, true. If everyone gets a chance to go to Mexico's forest or California's forest and see the monarchs, it'll change your life forever. It's one of the best things I've ever seen in nature. Oh my gosh, Shining Dog takes a lead. We're changing the leaderboard every question. I love it. Okay, final query for all the marbles. How can you help monarchs? Is it tell your friends and family what you learned today? Plant milkweed in your school or home garden? Support organizations like the Canadian Wildlife Federation that are working to help save monarchs? Or all of the above, which may or may not be an answer that I incorporate into every single Kahoot. Let's see what they go for. Dun, dun, dun. Now, Mr. Hancock's team is like the unquestioned masters of Kahoot. They actually won our Super Kahoot not too long ago, so we're going to see what our leaderboard is in a second. But yeah, a lot of you picked plant milkweed, but the others are correct too. It is all of the above. Okay, here's our podium.
All the answers are correct?
Yep. I do that all the time. They're always correct. Helpful sponsors. First, by 3 points, holy geez, is Shining Dog. If you are Shining Dog, let us know who you are in the chat. We are going to head to Mr. Hancock's class first. Georgetown, are you Shining Dog? Or did you win again?
We are shining it here for here, Jesse. No worries. We are wondering, student was wondering, how long do they spend in each, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, sorry, you're looking at me that look. How long do they spend in each stage, and how do they know how to move from one stage to the next?
Ooh.
Oh my gosh. You guys. I knew there were going to be some hard questions, but that really takes the cake. So, what can I say here? You know, the thing about insects is I mean, there are some guidelines, but it also always depends. And it depends on, you know, the weather that they have, depends on how much food they have to eat. So I know that the whole process, you know, from monarch butterfly, from egg to the time that they emerge as an adult is about 1 month. I am embarrassed to say I don't know the answer to that question.
I love what happens.
Oh
This is Stump the Scientist. That's a very tricky question off the cuff, so I'm really glad that we're in this position. So we can find out for you, Michelle.
Shall I Google the answer for you?
Well, send it to me after. We'll make sure all our classes have the answer. If you want to find that after the broadcast, I'll try and search it as we go. That would be lovely. But I love when we get this because, again, all scientists, even like the leading experts, don't know every single nitty gritty about something off the cuff. And so I'm so glad.
I'm embarrassed. I'm sorry, guys. I should know that. I can say something about the next question, though, which was also very interesting about how do they know, like, how to go from one stage to the next. And, you know, this goes back to how I said that, you know, insects are like, they're really complex creatures and, you know, they have brains. Like, they don't have a brain exactly like ours, but they have something like a brain. And so, you know, those, you know, changes from stage to stage are going to be mediated partly just by growth, you know, of growth of the caterpillar, but also just by hormones interacting in their brains and kind of, it just kind of happens for them in that way. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, there you go. So we've got question 1 in. Don't worry about the chat, Michelle. I'm going to make sure all our questions come in. So Mrs. Fisher's class.
So we look, I'm like, what's going on?
Yep. Hey guys, welcome in, Mrs. Fisher.
How do butterflies sleep?
Ooh.
Oh my gosh, how do they sleep? Well, they do sleep. And I can tell you a little bit about how monarch butterflies sleep when they're doing their migration. And what they do is, you know, they fly. So monarch butterflies are diurnal migrants. That means that they fly and migrate during the day. And then when it gets to be evening, they just kind of start landing on trees and bushes and things like that. And I think there's a little bit of like a, you know, when they start landing in the early evening on bushes and trees to spend the night, because they want to be off the ground, you know, they want to be somewhere safe, tucked in maybe under branches just to make sure that they don't get any rain on them. Once they start landing, they release kind of a pheromone, and then other butterflies that are still sort of traveling and coming can actually be attracted to them. And so they end up, you know, even when they migrate, they kind of spend the night in like little clusters, just kind of, you know, off the ground and under the leaves, under a bit of a canopy. And then that's how they sleep. Yeah.
Nice. So I think, and where this question might be coming from too, is that some animals turn off like half their brain at a time as they're going along. So we've had this with birds before in their migration, that they'll shut off half and they'll just keep flying in sort of a monotonous way.
Oh, that was wild. I didn't even know that about birds.
No, but I like, no. So monarchs, and we see this again in the forest when they migrate, is that it's sleep just like ours. They end up in a big tree. It's quite magnificent. Great question, guys. All right, Miss Reynolds class, Jamestown, you guys shared one in the chat, but come on live. It's more fun that way. Welcome in. Hi, third graders. Hello. Unmute.
Hello. Nice to see you in your class.
Yeah. You can unmute. What's your question for us?
Come up to my squat up here. No? Elena's asking a question.
Can monarch butterflies only be like orange and black?
Any other colors, Michelle? And I love the Bill shirt, by the way.
Yeah, that's a really cool question, actually, because we know that sometimes you see animals that what would be a good example? Like say a deer or a moose or a bear, and usually they're black, but sometimes they turn out white. Not to my knowledge, I have never heard of a monarch butterfly being another color.
Yeah.
I think they're always, orange with borders of black and white. That's a good question, though. I think that's very thoughtful.
Yeah, I'm looking up albinism in insects. So I don't, I've never heard of that. I've never heard of something where an insect is a different color in a way that like a albino person or an albino bear or anything else could be. Really neat question. Michelle,
yeah.
I know. The good questions from kids. I love it. Miss Minette's class, there are water rockers in Guelph. They want to know, why haven't they adapted to eat other things other than milkweed? What's the deal?
Well, that's interesting. Okay, I'm just trying to think about how to then talk about adaptation for our younger viewers. So, in order for an animal like, a caterpillar, and a whole species to adapt and evolve to a different food source, they would have to just start eating a different food and survive, and then their genes would kind of get passed on. So that's how that process would have to work. But let's think about then how monarch butterflies operate. We know that the butterflies are choosing milkweed to lay their eggs on. Actually, one thing I can tell you is that sometimes monarch butterflies make a mistake, and they actually lay their eggs on something called the dog strangling vine. And so we have this in Ontario. We have it in other places as well. And those eggs might hatch, but the caterpillars don't live.
Yep.
So, I mean, eating milkweed gives the butterflies a lot of advantages. I mean, it gives them that poison that they kind of integrate into their body, which protects them.
Yeah. This is, by the way, this is a very complicated question.
It's very complicated. Yeah, I'm sort of picking my way through it, and
so with limited time, I will say we want to speak in a few more questions before we wrap up. But one of the essences is, especially if you're really specialized, it's very hard to move past that. Just in the same way that like panda bears eat bamboo, if a panda were to eat something else, its whole digestive tract is not adapted to that. So it'd be very tricky once you get very specialized in how you live on this planet, how you adapt and evolve, to change in that. Humans are generalists, so we can start picking other foods all the time, and they all work equally well for us. So I like this in the monarch query. This is actually a very complicated question on an evolutionary biology level.
I know, and you know what? I honestly, this just goes to show that I need to spend more time with young people, because I would be smarter if I did.
These are some really tough questions. You guys are doing a great job. Miss Goddard's class, this is a great question. They joined us for hummingbirds yesterday, and we learned that hummingbirds really go for red flowers.
Yeah.
And so, is there a preferential flower for monarchs? Is there a color that they particularly go for?
That's interesting. I would have a clearer answer if the question had been about bees. I don't actually know what colors monarch butterflies see. I'm so sorry.
It's
I mean,
okay.
I know that it, like, if you think about like just wildflowers that are out there in meadows, they tend to be shades of yellow and orange and, and purple.
Yep.
So, yeah.
But I'm glad you mentioned bees and other things. So different flowers do attract different pollinators. So classically, red flowers attract birds because insects don't see in that color wavelength. So if you see a red flower, it's quite often a bird. If you've got a white flower, it's usually a nocturnal creature like a moth or a bat. So just generally around the world, white flowers mean moths or bats. And so these are things that we've known for a very, very long time, but I've never heard it in a butterfly context. This has literally never come up. I've never, when I studied.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah.
Again, stump the scientist, guys. You guys are doing great. Michelle, if you've got time, we're going to do another round of questions with our 3 live classes. We'll try and keep them rapid fire answers if we can to make sure our class can get to the next period. But Mr. Hancock's class, if you want to come in with another, take us away.
Definitely. A student was wondering, are all butterflies toxic to eat?
Are they all what?
All toxic.
No, they are not. Butterfly, lots of birds eat butterflies. The monarchs are just kind of like the best example of one that, they integrate the poisons from the plant that they eat and they are toxic.
Yes. I love this question because it speaks to a thing of toxicity just generally in animals, like poison dart frogs you may have heard of too. If you keep a poison dart frog in a terrarium at home, it's not toxic. It's not poisonous because it's not eating the plants that it needs to get that toxin. So a lot of things that are toxic in the world to eat, get it from the food that they themselves eat, which is super, super neat. So I love that query. Thanks, Mr. Hancock. Mrs. Fisher's class, we're coming to you. We'll wrap up with Miss Reynolds in a minute. Hey.
How many butterflies are there?
There? Oh, that's a difficult question to answer because we don't actually count the monarch butterflies to monitor the population. In fact, what we do is they take aerial photographs over the forests in Mexico over the winter, and then they sort of like count the number of trees over the amount of area to be able to say how many butterflies there are. Yeah. So I think
nobody knows
that there was like 1 or 2 hectares worth of butterflies. So that would be like, oh gosh, that's not very much. That's like 4 acres. There are like 4 acres worth of butterflies.
I will say for our classes too, you've all gone on the sidewalk and seen like a big group of ants. Imagine counting every one of those ants. Now imagine doing that for every one of those ants in the world. So when it gets to be insects, it's really hard to know an exact figure for them. But I love where your head's at. And this speaks to a general problem in biology. We don't know how many blue whales there are. We have no idea. It's the biggest animal ever to exist on planet Earth. They're bigger than any dinosaur. We do not have a count for them. So this is where you guys can come in, maybe use some cool technologies that like are helping us do that sort of thing. It's a very, very neat question. Before we bring in Miss Reynolds to say farewell, I just want to note again, check out the whole series. It's been amazing. This program, all the others are on our YouTube channel, and we're going to get that amazing Monarch link that Michelle shared with us so you can follow along and take part in Project Kaleidoscope as well. But New York, take us away with our final question. Hey, guys.
How many babies can they have all at once?
Ooh.
All at once? Oh my gosh. Well, I would think a monarch butterfly could probably lay at least 100 eggs, maybe more. I'm sort of just basing this on my knowledge of bees. I don't know the exact answer.
Yeah.
I would think a well-fed female monarch butterfly, because they have a big body, they've got a large abdomen. I would think they could lay at least 100 eggs, probably more.
We've talked about this in a few of our programs this week, but like we're mammals. So when we tend to have babies, we have like 1 or 2 or a few babies and we take really good care of them. And then they get to be all adults like us. A lot of animals, especially insects, will have a bazillion babies and most of them get eaten by other things. And like 1 or 2 will survive to become an adult. So monarchs fall into that category. And again, you guys are such good questioners today.
These are really good questions. Yeah.
Really good questions. Michelle, before we wrap up and do what we always do and bring in all our classes to say a big thank you and farewell, is there any last message you want to leave us with about monarchs and your amazing work?
It is possible to bring them back. And, this is something I just really want you guys to know. I know that there are a lot of scary things happening with the environment these days, but I don't want you to worry too much. We're cooperating with people all across North America to plant milkweed and, raise awareness like we did in our talk today. And I think it is possible to bring them back, and you guys can be part of that.
Yep. When we leave nature space, it tends to come roaring back. And this has been a message in monarchs, in salmon, in bison, in coral reefs, wherever we are on this planet. When we just let nature alone for a little bit, it's really amazing how quick it can recover. And I think you guys as an audience know this better than anyone. So kids, keep doing what you're doing. Plant that pollinator garden. It's a great step. And Michelle, what we do to wrap up every broadcast, I'm going to bring in all our kids to say thank you and farewell. If you're at home on YouTube and you want to scream and yell too, please do. But Mr. Hancock, Mrs. Fisher, Miss Reynolds class, thank you.